Hi, it's me again. I've come to share once again. Last time I posted, it was a few weeks ago. It was the 1 year anniversary of the day I was admitted to the hospital. Um, so today is February 7th, and I'm sorry that it seems like, especially lately, all these videos are probably pretty depressing. Um, what I'm about to tell you is and share is it's going to be really hard for me to talk about. And if you're not in the mood to potentially watch a woman cry, you might not want to watch this right now. The only reason I'm going to share this with you is because I'm hoping that it's going to create some empathy, which is what I am always looking for, um, to help people understand other people's situations and to realize that they're not alone. Maybe to give them some hope for themselves or a family member who might be struggling in one of the ways that I have struggled. But the PTSD has really been getting to me these last few weeks because tomorrow, February 8th, is Gemma's first birthday. So from January 18th, when I was admitted, and like I said in the last video, I talked about being admitted. That's how long I made it, from January 18th. And then she was born February 8th. So it was the 22nd day in the hospital that she was born. And I've been allowing myself moments to sit and kind of like, I don't want to say reminisce because that sounds like a nice term, like to be like, in this very nice state where you're just kind of like, oh, that was such a beautiful time. You reminisce about the birth of a healthy baby, but reminiscing about what happened to me, reminisce doesn't sound like the right word, but I'm sitting here and kind of allowing myself to go back and revisit some of it, even though it's painful. I know that it's necessary. My therapist even told me that don't force yourself to do it, but if it's happening and it's not a good time, just try to shut it down. But if you feel like you're in a position where you can take some time to reflect and, just go back and revisit that state you were in, if you're in a place where that's okay with you, then sometimes that needs to happen in order to work through the PTSD. So lately, it hasn't been so much about depression. Yeah, I have my moments when I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is hard. And, it's gotten easier. Gemma's been home for 8.5 months now. So I've adjusted in a lot of ways, but there's still things that, she's not like a normal baby. And that's one of the most frustrating things. If you know anybody who has a preemie, especially right now, if their preemie is little and maybe you don't have a preemie, if that person is trying to like keep their baby away from germs, don't give them a hard time about it. Don't be like, well, babies need to develop an immune system because that's how they do that, is being exposed to germs. And you're only going to make your baby sick when she grows up if she doesn't build her immune system right now. So you should just let her be exposed to germs now. No, let me tell you, earlier this month, Gemma was in the ER because she got sick. And she's been sick a few times this winter. And, I'm afraid of every little thing that happens to her. So be understanding of people if that's what they're trying to do, is keep their baby away from germs. And, Gemma has 4 older siblings. So there's an extent like where I can't protect her from every little germ, but I don't want to expose her to more than I have to right now. So the anxiety and stress of that is hard for me right now. And the care of all of her medications she's on, a baby this age, like you think of this and think like, why is she depressed and overwhelmed? Like this kid's a year old tomorrow. She's not like a normal year-old baby. Like my other babies at this age, I was weaning them off of being breastfed. Gemma never was breastfed, so I still am dealing with the bottles and the formula. She's still struggling with reflux. So I'm struggling with getting her to eat a good amount and getting her to not throw up. She's on 2 different reflux medications, 4 times a day total. So 2 times for each medication. So those can't be combined. So that's 4 bottles a day that I have to give her meds 15 minutes before. She's on medication for her hemangiomas. I don't know if you know what that is, but they're vascular birthmarks. So she's on a blood pressure lowering medication to help those to not grow very fast or to make them go away as best we can. So that's twice a day. We're talking breathing treatments. When she's congested, she gets 4 to 6 breathing treatments a day. She's on a vitamin. She's on a probiotic. Sometimes she takes Tylenol because she's teething. And then she just got done with an ear infection and her 3rd round of antibiotics in the last not even 3 months. So lots of meds, and that's very stressful, and it's very stressful for me to try to get her to eat enough. Not to mention the fact that I'm not a homebody, and right now I'm being forced to be at home so that she can be in a safe environment with fewer germs. But that's where I'm at with all of that, and that's, causing a little anxiety and maybe a little depression. But more than anything, the PTSD is really what is getting to me lately because, like I said, I'm revisiting what happened a year ago, and it's not good. So I'm going to revisit today, February 7th of last year with you now, and I'm going to cry. So brace yourself. So, the beginning of the end was Super Bowl Sunday. So it's 2018. And that day, out of nowhere, my hemorrhaging got worse. And for no reason. I didn't get up or anything. It just got worse. And then over the next few days, it just got worse and worse. And I just knew that was it. That I was getting close to it being over. I didn't know what way it was going to go. But with Gemma, like I didn't know if she was going to make it or what. But, so those few days, it got worse and worse. And then February 7th, I can even see in my text threads with my husband that I was like going back and forth, and I was like, this is bad. Like, it's really heavy, and I've had a few transfusions and my hemoglobin is still dropping. And I think this is it. And the rule of thumb with the hospital was if you lose 500 cc's of blood or more in a couple hours, like on one pad, not to be gross, but on one pad, if like they weigh the pads, and if the pad is 500 cc's or more, you're done. Like, you're going to have that baby, you're delivering. So it was getting worse and worse over that day, especially. Pads were getting heavier and heavier, and they were trying different things to try to like make it back off. And it was really hard for me mentally, what they were doing to me. And then also, like, there was this gut feeling that I knew that no matter what they did, that was gonna happen. She was gonna have to be delivered. So by the evening of February 7th, I had started having regular contractions. I've been having some random contractions over the course of the day. But I was like kind of in denial. And then they started getting painful, and they started getting regular, and I was watching the clock, and I wasn't wearing a monitor, and I didn't tell my nurse because I was afraid. And I finally was like, I have to say something. Like, this is getting serious. And they were like, I don't know, 3 minutes apart, 2.5 minutes apart, something like that. So it was like 6 p.m. It was coming up on shift change at 7. And I told my nurse, like, hey, I think I'm having contractions. Can you put the monitor on me? And she was like, yeah, but we're coming up on shift change, so I'm going to do it right now. And then right before we change shifts, I'll come look at what it picked up. I'll check on you and see, and then we'll go from there. And sure enough, she saw them on there, and it wasn't even at the end of the hour because I called her back in there after like a few of them, and I'm like, are you looking at those out on the screen out, on the other screen in the other patient's room or whatever? And she's like, yeah, I see them. And they're kind of close together, and I'm waiting on a call back from the doctor. I already called your doctor to see what she wants to do. But you need to stop eating and drinking right now. So I'm like, okay, this has happened to me before. With this pregnancy, at one point, I got put on magnesium sulfate when I was 24 weeks, exactly to the day, because of contractions. And you can't eat or drink on magnesium sulfate. And you also can't eat or drink if you're going to have a C-section. So I'm like, all right, just to be on the safe side, fine. So I didn't eat or drink anything. And then she was like, yeah, the doctor wants to put you on magnesium sulfate. So we're going to get that started, but the shift change is happening. So I'm going to get the other nurse in here, and I'm going to have her, monitor you, but I'm going to get it started. So when you're on magnesium sulfate, you have to get a catheter because they have to monitor your urine output. And I was also not allowed to get up. I wasn't even allowed to sit up on the bedpan. So they were like, all right, catheter's going in, which is terrible. I hate catheters. I had to get the catheter. They started the magnesium. And then I called my husband and I'm like, you have to come. Like, I'm having contractions. And they were like seriously, like 2.5 minutes, and they were painful. And he came luckily pretty quickly. And even on the magnesium sulfate, they were like every 4 to 5 minutes apart. They slowed down, but they didn't stop, and they were still painful. And that nurse kept talking to my doctor, and she was like, okay, well, we're going to go up on your magnesium because you're not maxed out. We're going to go up. And so they finally got me maxed out. And like I said, it was still only 5 minutes apart. Magnesium sulfate's the devil if you've never had it. You feel like you're on fire. Very nauseous. And I was scared, and I was bleeding a lot. So I was, getting these transfusions, and I was shaking, and it just started, everything started happening so fast. Like, she was like, listen, your doctor is not going to come unless she knows that I've done everything she's asked me to do, and it's not getting any better. So this all started like 11 p.m. or 6 p.m. And by around 11 p.m., it was like, okay, my nurse came in and she was like, I have to call the doctor to come in because I've done everything she's asked me to do, and you're still, having these contractions. They're not going away. We've given you blood. We've done everything we can do. But she had called the chaplain in because I asked for them to come pray with me. And so my husband and I prayed with the chaplain. And I was really scared. She was like, there's no priest here, but you can't get a blessing from a priest, but you can at least have the chaplain come. So we talked to her for a while, and it was really late at night, and it was really scary. And finally, my doctor showed up. It was around midnight, maybe a little after. And she was like, listen, I told you in order to not scare you and make you worried that you would have to deliver, that don't think you're going to have to deliver until I tell you that I'm worried that you're going to have to deliver. But I'm going to tell you right now that I'm worried I'm going to have to deliver you today. So that's when I knew that it was really bad. And they were monitoring my blood loss, and they were like, this is a lot, but it looks watery, and we think that your membranes might be leaking, like your water bag might be leaking. So she's like, I want to get an ultrasound to see what's going on in there and measure your amniotic fluid levels, because I really don't want to deliver this baby unless I have to. And I need to be sure that I have to, that this is the only choice, the only option. So I'm like, okay, fine. But I was bleeding so badly that I was shaking. I was like laying in bed, shaking, shivering. I couldn't hold still. And I was so scared and so overwhelmed. And there were all these nurses in there. And I told my husband, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this baby is coming. Like, I can't hold this anymore. So she was waiting for the doctor to come do the ultrasound because she didn't want to just do it herself. She could do an ultrasound, but she's not a maternal fetal medicine specialist. She's an OB. She's a high-risk OB. She does general ultrasounds, and she didn't want to have an ultrasound technician come up and do it because they're not as good as a maternal fetal medicine specialist. So a maternal fetal medicine specialist knows exactly what they're looking at, and they can see it in a different way than any other doctor can, or an ultrasound technician. So she said, I want the MFM to come see you and do it because she knows what's normal for you, and she needs to help me make this call if this is it. So here I'm having these painful contractions, and she called that doctor, but it's the middle of the night. And so she had a hard time, getting a hold of her. And then we had to wait for her to come. And during that time, Gemma's heart rate started decelerating. And she told me before the baby was fine, but now she's acting like she's having a hard time with this. And once that happens, there's no blood transfusing we can do or anything we can do to save it. Like, it's game over. So we were waiting on that MFM to come. And you could tell the doctor was getting really antsy, my OB, waiting for her. And she kept asking the nurses, like, is she here? Did you hear anything? Did she call? What's going on? It seemed like forever, but I'm sure it wasn't very long before she came. And she asked me some questions and immediately got the wand out to do the ultrasound. And she started on the right side of my abdomen, and she was like, okay, there's a pocket of fluid there. That looks good. And then she went up on the top, and she was like, there's a pocket of fluid there. That looks okay. And then she went to the left side of my abdomen, and I immediately almost jumped off the table because as soon as she pressed on my belly, it hurt so bad. And she's like, that hurts? And I'm like, yeah, it's like a cramp. It hurts so bad when you push there. And she just looked at the other doctor, and she was like, I'm sorry, I know it's going to hurt, but I have to ultrasound this area because something's going on in there if it hurts, and I need to see why. And then as soon as she started pushing there, and I'm like trying so hard to like hold still because it hurt so bad, I saw her look over at the other doctor, and she's like, do you see that? And the other doctor was like, yeah, I see that. And I couldn't see the screen because they had it turned towards them, but they both looked at me, and she's like, you're going to delivery. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she said, the whole side of my placenta had abrupted. So it was just bleeding, and baby wasn't getting enough blood flow. She's like, that's why she's in distress. We need to get her out. And the the next thing I know, there was an anesthesiologist that came in. There were other nurses that came in. My nurse had prepped everything. My doctor was like, I'm gonna go to the OR and get ready. I'm gonna go change. And it was just a whirlwind. It happened so fast. And I was in my regular room. There were probably like 8 other people in there all of a sudden. And they started wheeling my bed. They were like, we got to take you to the OR now. So we're going to go out this way. And they were going to do general anesthesia because they couldn't wait. They couldn't do it spinal because they didn't have enough time. And they were worried that I might have to have a hysterectomy because they were like, if we can't stop this bleeding with just delivery, you can't be awake for hysterectomy, so you should probably be out anyway. And they didn't want my husband in there. So I had to say goodbye to him. And he had to wait in the room, and I said goodbye, and I didn't know if I'd ever see him again. So they took me down the hallway and into the OR, and as we were turning the corner to go in there, I could see my OB sitting in a chair, putting on her little booty covers, like the little scrub booty covers over her feet. And she just had this look on her face, like she was so, like, in this zone. Like she was, like, worried, but, like, focused. I could tell she didn't want to do it. And, they took me into the OR, and there were so many people in there. I just remember laying there, and the lights were so bright, and there was a NICU team, so the nurses and the doctor, and I saw the doctor. I had met him before, the neonatologist. It was a comfort to see him because he's actually really, really good. And I was really, really happy that he was the one on staff at the time, like at the hospital, because I trusted him with Gemma. And he was like, listen, I met you 3 weeks ago when you were admitted. And you hung on this long, and your baby's going to be okay. He's like, you did a really good job, Mama. And I was just thinking, no, I didn't. I didn't do a good job. So many things happened. Like, it's such a rapid pace that it's hard for me to really recall with little details, but I know that there were so many doctors, nurses, surgical assistants. Like, my doctor wasn't in there yet, but they started, like, prepping me, and as soon as I got in there, like, they put up the curtain and everything over me. And I remember when I moved from my bed, they wanted me to scoot over onto the OR table. And they were like, just scooch over here. It's the same level. Just scooch over. We just need to get you from this bed onto this table. And I just know that as soon as I shifted my pelvis onto that other table, I just thought I was going to die. I was bleeding so badly when I moved. I just felt this gush. And I was laying there. They put up the curtain, and I felt the scrub tech. She introduced herself right before she put up the curtain, and she was like, cleaning my belly. I could feel her, but I couldn't see her because she was on the other side of the curtain. And up by my face, there were just a couple doctors, and my husband couldn't be there. And it was really scary. And, so the one doctor was like, this is the other doctor. She introduced her, and she was like, she's going to help me with your surgery. And so the anesthesiologist was right next to me, and he had a nurse put over my face, he had a mask put over my face, an oxygen mask, and he was like, this doesn't have any medication in it. This isn't gonna, this isn't gonna this isn't gonna put you under, but you need oxygen because you're hyperventilating right now and your baby needs air. So you need to do the best you can to take long breaths and breathe into this mask. And then a minute later, he's like, look, I'm going to put something in your IV and it's going to make you relax because I need you to relax right now. He's like, you need to calm down. You're breathing really fast. You need to calm down. And so I was just laying there like terrified, and I just didn't know what was happening, like what was going to happen to me or Gemma. And then I just remember he said, all right, I'm going to give you the medication now. It's going to put you to sleep. And you're going to go to sleep now and you're not going to remember anything. And I just remember I just said a prayer and I told God that I trusted him. And then I fell asleep. And when I woke up, people say like, oh, I remember my surgery, like I was kind of half awake. That wasn't the case for me. I didn't have any dreams. I don't have any memory. All these memories I have were of before I went to sleep, like in the final minutes. And then I just remember being in recovery. I'm in this dark space with a little light over my head. And I just remember I had my head turned to the right and I heard voices saying, wake up, wake up, wake up. It's over. Wake up. And I had no idea that when you wake up from a C-section under general anesthesia, you don't have any medication at all. They can't give it to you until you're awake. So you literally could feel everything. And I just remember I woke up screaming. I don't know at what point I realized I was in pain, but I was screaming, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And they were like, what? We need to know your pain level. And I'm like, it's a 10, it's a 10, it's a 10. Oh my gosh. I was screaming. And they were like, it's okay now that you're awake. The morphine's on the way. We got medication coming. Don't worry. It's coming. And I was just freaking out. I couldn't believe how much pain I was in. And I was still strapped down under the table. They hadn't unstrapped me yet. So I couldn't even move. And Andy was on my left side, and I heard him try to distract me, and he was yelling, hey, Gemma's okay. She's okay. She's okay. I have a picture. Do you want to see it? And I was like, I'm glad she's okay. I can't look right now. I can't even open my eyes. It hurts so bad. And even once they got the morphine going, it was really bad. C-section's no joke, but C-section in this kind of situation, I wouldn't want to wish it on my worst enemy. But I was in recovery for a little while. They got my morphine going. And then on my way to my room, my recovery, they wheeled me into Gemma's room and I got to see her for the first time. I don't really remember very well because I was really like messed up, I guess. I know I saw her, but I didn't cry or anything. I didn't get emotional. I think I just was like in a state of shock and on morphine, so it wasn't until the next day that I got to go see her. And I'm grateful I got to hold her at that point because a lot of women don't get to hold their babies for a long time when they're born that early, 26 weeks and 2 days. By the time I saw her, she didn't even have a ventilator on her anymore. She had been graduated to CPAP because she was breathing over the ventilator. They only had her on the tube for like an hour. And they were like, she's breathing over it. She can handle CPAP. She got put back on the ventilator when she got sick, but because she went into respiratory failure then, but that was weeks later. So she was on CPAP, and I was so proud of my little fighter, my amazing baby. So I got to hold her the next day. It was a real struggle for me to get out of my bed and get moving, but my motivation was that I was going to go see her in her room. So she was born at 1:52 a.m. That's a little more than 12 hours from now. It's just really amazing to think of how far she's come, but also to realize that I went through that, that she went through that. And I can't believe that she's going to be 1 year old. It's like, wow. She's still very much a baby because her adjusted age is only 8.5 months, but so she behaves like an 8.5-month-old, but I'm never going to have a baby under 1 year old again. After what happened to me, I can't have any more kids now. And you might think, well, she has 5 kids. That's a lot of kids. Like, that's enough. But the circumstances that dictated this make it hard for me to go, oh, okay, I don't have a choice. So if you have like 2 kids and you're like, oh, I wanted to have 2 kids and then I had 2 kids and I know I'm not going to have any more kids, you're not emotional because like you're like, okay, well, this baby is my last baby and you were like ready for that. That's different from how I feel. I wouldn't necessarily have had more kids, but the fact that this is it and it's not up to me is hard. Probably similarly to women who don't have any and can't get pregnant. I mean, yes, I have had my babies. I know it's not the same situation because I have babies, but the feeling of being very frustrated and sad that you don't think you're ever going to carry a baby or you never will. It's got to be similar to knowing that you never will again. I know it's not the same, like I said, don't get mad. Like, she got to carry a baby and I didn't. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing, but it's still really hard. So I'm very grateful for everything that everyone has done for us in this past more than year. Everyone who's been supporting us along this journey and everyone who loves us, loves Gemma. I'm very grateful for everybody. I just wanted to share that with you guys. So next time I post, Gemma's going to be 1 year old. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later.